Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Virtual Sunday School and another chance to read from the Action Bible. Today's reading starts with the story of Job. And Job is a very profound book. It's about suffering and its meaning and how we deal with it. But it's not actually part of the historical progression of the Bible. So last week we ended with the Tower of Babel, which we can find in our Bibles in Genesis chapter 11. And today we start with the story of Abram, or Abraham. Doesn't really matter. At some point in the story, God changes his name from Abram to Abraham. But that story is in Genesis chapter 12. And the idea seems to be that God had been dealing with all of humanity. He dealt with all of Adam's kids. He dealt with all of Noah's kids. And today, he embeds his promise in a single family. That is, in the family of Abraham, whom we know more commonly as the children of Israel. So the family of Abraham becomes kind of like a cocoon for the promise that God made that he would redeem his world. In this one family, this promise will be watched over and protected until it comes to its full blossom, like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, when Jesus comes. So the most important thing that God ever promises Abram is not about having a lot of descendants or inheriting the land, but the most important promise that God ever makes Abram is that all the peoples of the earth would be blessed through him. So there's sort of the first thing we want to see is God is taking a step forward in making sure that his promise to save all human beings will have a chance to come to fulfillment in one of Abraham's descendants. Now, there are other things we can note along the way, like, for example, Abram was quite old when God called him. He was already 75, and Abram had to wait 25 years until he had his first son by Sarah. You'll read about another son, but in terms of the promise that God makes, it's the second son that counts. It's Isaac that counts. And one other thing we'll read here is we will read about Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac. And there's a lot of things we could say about this, but I suppose the thing that I want to point out the most is simply that Abram believed God would keep his promise. So the book of Hebrews says, for example, that Abram believed that even if he sacrificed Isaac, God would raise him from the dead, because God would keep his promises. So this is really a story all about God and his promises. God keeps his promises to Abram with his son Isaac, and he keeps his promises to all of us in Abram's descendant Jesus, who brings us all salvation and forgiveness. And God will keep his promises to us as well. Happy reading. I hope you enjoyed the stories today.